Hello, America. Episode 20, Contra-Dictions, coming at you live. We got a few topics tonight to discuss. I'm back. Sorry I missed you on Friday, but the boys held it up strong. Let's introduce my friends and colleagues. Kenny, how you feeling tonight, brother?
Hey, I'm good. Welcome, everybody.
What's going on? So Kenny is not in the mood to talk tonight. Don't. Anyway, welcome. welcome aboard. Welcome to Contra-Dictions, the other side. He's one side, I'm the other side.
Oh,
and
he's
I
all
guess Fred is like
tonight.
that. It's gonna be Kenny's all business tonight. Oh shit. Nah, man, it's gonna be good, man. Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. We are back. We've got quite a few things on the docket, if you will, to talk about. So looking forward to getting into it. But been doing great. Been a nice, productive Monday. How about you guys?
Pretty good here. I just wanted to, some of the things that we're going to go over tonight that I'm excited about. Tonight's going to be a little different, because it's going to be more of an educational discussion, which will probably turn into debate at certain points, but it's an educational thing. A lot of people have talked about these certain topics, executive orders, local voting, and I just want to make sure people understand the importance of it. And, but everything else personally is good here. Have my kids all week, so we've had a good time here.
Let's dive in right away then, right? So executive orders. Are the presidents getting too much power? I mean, is Trump the first one to use this? I mean, what's the deal here? Are we using too much, giving the president too much leeway? What do you think, man?
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, let's be honest. I would probably could argue that executive orders are really the extent of the president's power, almost on some level. Like if it ain't for the executive order, like what
he ain't doing shit.
He ain't doing shit. You know what I'm saying? So, right. But really, the executive order is serious business. And just for people that don't know, for example, the Abraham Lincoln back in 1863 decided to free 3 million slaves, a little over 3 million slaves back in 1863 with something called the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation was not a law. The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order. So executive orders are not laws. Just to be clear, they can be enforced as laws, or they can carry the weight of a law, if you will. But there's executive orders are basically. So this is the thing. There's two ways that I guess a law or change can happen. You can have an actual law passed, which is it comes in the form of a bill. Congress has to pass it. It has to pass through both the House and the Senate. That bill, and then if that bill passes the House and the Senate, the president signs off.
Which hasn't happened since 1932.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a very lengthy process. It's not easy at all. Or the president can issue an executive order. The thing about an executive order is that an executive order doesn't need any sort of. It doesn't like the president can just sign off on it, and then that's what it is. Now, it's of course it's up to local officials and your police and things like that as to how that executive order is going to be enforced. Judges and things like that. But I mean, there is a checks and balances system for executive orders. But by the time the checks and balances system happens, the executive order has already been in effect for a month, 60 days, sometimes even longer. But the checks and balances system is the legislative branch can create laws to counteract the executive order. They can pass laws through Congress to counteract the executive order, or the judicial branch. Usually, the Supreme Court can. The Supreme Court can deem the executive order unconstitutional, and therefore make it null and void on that basis. So to be clear to the audience, what the executive order is all it is doing is defining how we read the Constitution. So that is the way. So an executive order is actually just an extension of what should have been happening according to the president, which should have been happening
currently, those 3 million slaves that Abraham Lincoln let go, the reason for that was because the belief is that those people should have already been free based on the Constitution. And then in order for that to get overturned, that takes a Supreme Court or a federal court. Now, some of the problem with that is we do have some very right-wing and very left-wing federal court people, and there's lots of federal courts across the country, but through the Supreme Court or the federal court, they can stop them. Just so some people understand, some of the things, the Iran nuclear deal was actually an executive order, as was Trump's elimination from the Obamacare mandate. So it's funny because getting into this, I was concerned. I mean, there's lots of and from the right-wing standpoint, they used to really bash Obama for using this. And Obama's only number 16 out of, I should know this, I think it's 49 presidents we've had. I don't remember how many presidents we've had right now. Oh, 45, duh.
45.
Shouldn't know that one. Which, by the way, seen a guy the other day with a 45 hat. I was pretty excited about that.
Boo.
But it's 45. So out of 45, Obama was 16. So there's lots of people that have done more than him. FDR did a whole bunch. I mean,
FDR
thousands.
He did 3,500. Yeah, FDR had 30. He signed off on 3,500 executive orders. And some of them were good, and some of them weren't good. I'm sure we'll probably get into that too. But some of them were very inclusive, and others were very divisive, if you will. So, I mean, that's a lot of executive orders. But just roughly since 1960, there has been about 300 executive orders signed. You got all the presidents from 1960 till now currently. The one thing that I will say is that President Trump has signed 46 executive orders in his 3.5, almost 4 years of president. That's a lot.
How many did you say?
I'm 46.
Well, now, you didn't add them together. It's 139. That was in 1 year. So he's at 139.
Well, I might just be counting the major ones too.
That's possible. Obama did 277. So it's funny because they're
over 4 years. Over 4 years though.
Correct. So they're actually they're pretty close right there. Like on par. If he does it again, he'll be at 280, and Obama was at 277. So they've done about the same amount of that, which I think it speaks more to the issue with Congress being a lockhold, and with Congress being a lockhold, it's like these presidents, that's their really only ability. And I really wish that our Congress would really get into trying to figure out, I just feel like everything is so politicized. And, I was looking this up earlier today, and, politics in general was supposed to be how to find solutions. That's what politicians are supposed to do. It's one of the things I like about Trump is I feel like he tries to find solutions. But with most politicians, especially Congress, when Obama was in, his first 4 years, first 2 years, he had Democrats in both, just as Trump did for his first 2 years. And even then, they both got about one thing done. Obama got the ACA passed, and then Trump did a little bit of illegal immigration. And that's about it. I mean, in terms of going through Congress. So I think I was probably more against executive orders before I did the research. But because there is a checks and balances there, which makes me feel good. But the courts can be so
long-winded.
So yeah. So it's hard to stop, even if they do a bad one. The executive order was originally supposed to be put in if you didn't have time to get it through Congress, and they circumvented the shit out of that. Really doesn't have anything to do with time anymore. It just has to do with, you go, you know what? Why am I going to waste time? I'm going to put this in Congress. It's going to bounce around. It's going to pass the House, knowing that I won't sign it. Then it'll get to the Senate. They'll send something back. I will sign it. Then it'll get back to the House. They'll chop it up and redo a new one. We're all over it. And now and here's the thing, especially for Trump. And I actually, to be honest with you, I assumed Trump was going to have a lot more executive orders, just based on the fact that when you are a businessman and you're trying to get around the red tape. I mean, one of the first things he did get in office outside of the mandate was cut regulations. I mean, that's a businessman model, any businessman that gets in the White House is going to cut regulations. So when you cut regulations, cut all this red tape out, and then you figure out, oh, shoot, I'm in Congress, and I got to go here and here and here and here, and it's not going to work, and he knows it's not going to work, then the power to pen.
Right. Just write the executive order. Make your life that much easier. But yeah, there's been a ton of them written, guys, all across the board. I mean, we know, like we just talked about FDR writing 3,500 of them. We had Harry Truman. He actually wrote the executive order to desegregate the military. President Truman, that was back in 1948, if I'm not mistaken. So you know, there's been great ones. Lyndon Johnson, you know, he signed the executive order for non-discriminatory practices in hiring and employment. So there's been all sorts of executive orders that have changed the course of American history, that have changed the course of and the trajectory of most of our lives. Really quick, we've got up here, we've got executive orders by party. That's
what I was getting ready to say. Like, I didn't even realize how many, you know, being just a naive American, I didn't know how many executive orders were done per president. Like, you know, like you heard it with Obama and Trump. This was the first time I've ever heard like it over announced in the media. Like, hey, man,
and I'll tell you this, it's funny to me because, and this is where the Republican stuff gets on my nerves when it comes down to politics, because Reagan, Clinton, here you go, really? Clinton, Reagan, Bush, Carter, all had more than Obama. But they were all over Obama on that one. And then when all is said and done, I tend to believe that Trump will have more, depending if I don't think Republicans are going to win take the House and the Senate. So he'll be back to square one. He'll be executive ordering his way all the way through the next 4 years.
I mean, and some of the executive orders, I'll be honest, you know, some of the executive orders that Trump has passed have actually have done some good. I think my question is, because Trump's character is always so much in question, are the executive orders that he's issuing, are they for the people, or are they just for him to stroke his own ego and sort of, you know, flex his power sort of thing? Well, I think that's where a lot of Americans are at. And I think it's a little bit of both.
He only succeeds if America succeeds. So I don't know where, to me, there's a disconnect there, because if the American people don't succeed at it, it's not going to bring him. He's only, like, he gets credit only from the black community on what he did with the sentencing reform, because that helped people. So it's only situations where the president does well. The reason, you know, my issues with Obama was that I didn't have a lot that he did that I go, oh, that helped me, you know, like, and so at least with the Trump, it's like, okay, when COVID gets taken and when COVID removed from COVID, our economy was doing really well. So my money in my 401k, which I didn't have much, I just started being, almost successful. And so that stuff starts building up. And then I'm going, man, you know, people are buying new properties and I'm doing the insurance for them, or these people, you know, so more people are buying nicer things. And I'm, you know, it helps, you know, that I know they don't want to say trickles down, but I being in the insurance industry, that has helped me. The more houses somebody owns, the more properties I get to insure. So when things are going well there, it certainly helps me. So, I mean, I think Trump, of course, he likes to praise more than any president, I think, ever. He was the most prideful person I've known since I was a kid. So, or ever heard about. So, I mean, but that's one of the things that I thought about when I was going to go into the, you know, Hillary versus him was, I know he doesn't want to fail our country, and I don't care what the reason is. Like, I don't care if my coach wants to win 1 million games and I get to be the starting quarterback for all of them, because to me, that rising tide is going to help my ship. So,
yeah, for sure. So, you know, that's pretty much, you know, what we've got going on with executive orders. They've been around a long time. A lot of people have done executive orders. It's nothing new. I know people are all up in.
The normal American, how many general orders any one of the presidents gave, they wouldn't be able to answer it. And if you ask them which one was the most, which one did the most, they have no chance.
There's been executive orders going on behind the scenes since before any of us were born.
That's what I'm saying.
It's still happening. Like we don't even know all the.
I didn't even know executive orders existed until like 9-10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
to be honest with you, I only know because the right-wing media went jack ham on Obama about it. So
that's what I'm saying. 10 years ago,
upon my research today, I will tell you that it's hard. I think one of the things they did was they brought it up since when people don't know about something, it's easier to manipulate people about it. I think they were certainly mad because there were some very deep extensions. I mean, I'm not, transsexual bathrooms. Okay, I'm not even going to give my opinion on it. Doesn't matter. But the executive order was written based on basically under the act of, whether gender orientation, whether it fell under that or not. So once he passed that executive order, the government was supposed to treat that as a classification where that was not a classification before. And so those types of things are expansions of the government because then that's the way that it's ran. Same with undocumented workers. That was another one that he did that was controversial per se. Determining whether or not somebody is an American citizen, but they were kind of playing in the gray area. Well, once you're here, should you all of a sudden, the minute that you're in our country, get all the rights of a citizen? And he essentially said that you should. Again, agree or disagree. I mean, the point is that it causes me concern that way. But at the end of the day, we do have the checks and balances. And so those things were challenged in court. And you know what? If things get challenged in court, and maybe it's a great time to transition the conversation to this, but if you don't like it, you got to change who the judges are. So I'll take first swing at this. Is this, unless there's anything else, Glenn, you wanted to comment on that? Any specific executive orders?
I just want to say real quick, because Trump has signed quite a few, and he if you really go through them, some of them are controversial, but for the most part, he signed the executive order on federal hiring, which we can kind of go down that rabbit hole if you want to. I'm sure we probably. He signed so many of them. He stopped preferential treatment for Hong Kong. He signed the social media executive order, which I think is probably really a controversial one. The social media executive order that he signed. Yeah, but of course, police reform I think
I know he stopped terrorist entry into the country, promoted some energy stuff. What'd you say, Fred?
I said after that Twitter blackout they just had, where everybody lost their blue check mark, that little executive order Trump might have signed about the, them not saying, hey, we're not, taking away people's posts or unfriending people for you. Maybe that was all right what he did, right?
Yeah, it's a tough. What do you got on that one, Kenny?
You honestly think Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram aren't saying, "Hey, let's push these out and let's keep these back a little bit"?
That they're exactly doing that. I personally don't like that. I
don't like that either. I'm going to always err on the side of freedom of speech there. Sadly enough, that even means if you're saying racist or bigoted remarks, I think I agree too. You can't say one above the other.
You gotta let it run, man.
As much as that's hard, just obviously, if one of my buddies is putting all that stuff up, he's not my buddy anymore. You gotta, but I do want to point out something. I just want to go over a couple of these executive orders that Trump did, because I think some people don't realize. And I'm not saying all these are great. I'm sure you can get into the weeds in each one. But he did one that was called Buy American, Hire American. He did one that reduced tax regulatory burdens. He did one that promoted agriculture, which is typically a leftist point of view. He did one that addressed the trade. Obviously, he did a lot of the trade. A lot of his executive orders were for trade agreements. He really is a good negotiator. I know people don't like to throw him a bone, but man, his negotiating skills are really second to none from what I've seen from any president. He did a disability and accountability and environmental review, which is a environmentalist protection act. That, again, is typically not something that Republicans deal in. This is probably one of the reasons our debt's so high. So I don't want to give him too much credit here. But he's done a lot of things to be able to promote he has an executive order called the Efficient Federal Operations Order because it was such an effing train wreck. I know he's helped the VA streamline. So just different things that kind of going back to what you were saying, Glenn, I do think there's actually a lot of good that can be done from these. I do think that judges need to be on top of it when they are trying to expand the Constitution as opposed to defining the Constitution, because I do think there's some concern there. I'm not a big government person, but if that's the last thing, then we can go ahead and hit over to the
Yeah, I think that's a good segue for local government. You know, we can segue over into local GovT.
So we're talking local voting, suppressed voting. Are we going into the bowels of maybe mail-in voting? Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, I think we can go into that as well. I mean, I know, first of all, I just wanted to kind of outline for people so that people understand, okay, a lot of times we talk about local, when you're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, talking about wanting to certain laws, regulations, actually get things accomplished. One of those things is if the police are doing a poor job, then the judges need to be held accountable if the judges are doing wrong. And a lot of times we don't even know how to deal with the judges. Well, the judges in most areas, and we'll go through how they're selected, but eventually they're voted on. So even in states where they are placed, they are also eventually the door opens up, and if you want to get rid of them, you can get rid of them. So we're going to discuss that a little bit further. But what do you have so far, Glenn?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of people always kind of just focus on the presidential race and, you know, who's running for president, who their vice president nominee is going to be. And that's, you know, that's one aspect of it too. But your local government will actually affect your life way more than who the president is. So your local government, I mean, I'm talking literally down to, because in my opinion, I think one of the most one of the most important positions in local government is the district attorney. Your district attorney not only pretty much single-handedly decides what local laws are going to be passed, but not only that, how they're going to be enforced, as well as interpreted. So I think the DA, you know, voting for your DA, knowing who's running for your DA is important. Knowing who's running for, you know, your city council, and you know, just knowing who's running for all of your local seats. That's what's going to really affect your life more so than, you know, who's the president or anything like that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it here.
So one of the things that I wanted to add, just so people understand, here's how a judge is selected, because I didn't know this. In each state, they have a way that it's selected. There's 5 or 4 basic ways of selection. You have a partisan election, which I hate, okay? This is where the judges actually are connected to a political party. So it'll say Rosenblum, Democrat. And you're like, and so when you're voting, you know, a lot of times there's lots of people out there that'll go straight D, straight R, you know, whatever their party is. I'm not a big fan of that, because to me, a judge should not be partisan. Now, do they have certain party alliances? Sure, but I'm not a big fan of that. They also have nonpartisan elections, which is when you don't have a party affiliation. So it would just say Rosenblum, and that's it. And a lot of times in that situation, the concern is that anytime you're dealing with voting, you're dealing with having people try to buy judges. Okay. And so you're still going to have that money flowing in. It's just not going to come from a specific party. Then they have legislative elections. Oh, sorry, I was right. There was 5 types. Legislative elections, which is where the legislation picks them. That's it. Then they have governor. I'm not going to say gubernatorial. There we go. But elections, which is where the governor picks somebody and then he clears legislation. They got to vote up or down on them if they vote on them. And in the national level, that would be in the Senate. But at your local state governments, that would be the legislation there, the county legislation, and they would pass that person through. And then after they get approved, after 2 years, they'll come up for election, and that's when you'll see up or down votes on them. And then the last one is AA, which is basically it's called the Missouri Plan, which is nominating commission, reviews certain things, comes up with a candidate, submits a list to the government or to the governor, and then the governor go ahead and passes that person through. And again, after 2 years, they get a yes or no vote. So there's good and bad to each one. Most states are actually with the Missouri Plan. That's where Fred's at in Maryland. That's what's there. Me and Glenn are an elective, nonpartisan
elective states.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do your research. If there's judges, that's what you really need to take some time for. A lot of people will talk about, Trump, but at the end of the day, Trump's tweets are not going to change your life. This judge that is in your local community could actually change somebody that you know's life for good or bad. What do you think about that?
And prime example of just how important your local government is. Look at DC, right? Look at DC. The mayor decides to paint Black Lives Matter across 2 city blocks right in front of the White House, and Trump can't do anything about it, like right in DC. So that's a literal depiction of just how strong your local government is. Typically starting at the governor of the state and then, trickling on down too. But mayors of cities, I mean, it's really,
you can't stop them in New York either, unless you're a black lady that dove on the ground, wiping everything around. She says no to the Black Lives Matter movement. She says yes to Jesus Lives Matter, whatever the heck she had on her shirt. But that lady was down, but she dove on the ground and was doing angels on it. What if Trump would have done that in front of the Trump Tower?
Just paint over real quick. But also, it's really important. I mean, think about your fire chiefs and things like that, but definitely your police chief. Your police chief has a direct hand in who's going to become sheriff. Unless you live in a town where the people directly are voting on the sheriff, that's actually kind of rare nowadays. You're usually voting on a police chief.
If you're living in a Chicago, a San Francisco, or a Baltimore, and you don't like what's happening, now's your chance to change it. It's not
I'm telling you.
Not Trump. You go in and you vote for your local government individuals.
There you go.
What stinks is that there's such a hot, when you look at the different options for judges, because I wanted to make a determination on which one I liked the most. I mean, even though I liked nonpartisan elections best, it's interesting because of the issue with buying votes, which happens in the electoral process, and then corruptive appointments, which is people that are not ready to do it and shouldn't do it. And so the best solution for that is the Missouri Plan. But when you use the Missouri Plan, again, who are the people that are making that decision, right? And to me, I'd rather it be the people than some small group. So then I end up back into the election.
Best of both worlds.
It's like election versus appointment, and it's just there's corruption either way. And it's funny because as I look at it, I'm like, oh well, whichever side the Republicans will pick, the Democrats will just be on the other side saying, well, that this and this is negative, but I'm not sure.
It's more complicated than that too, because I mean, like we talked about on the show a lot. You can be on one side of the coin, but on the other side of the coin on a certain issue here too. There's several people, myself included, that are not all just Republican, or Democrat, right? And really, those are like the votes that matter. Those people that are kind of like in the middle. So they're the ones that are going to make it swing either direction. So knowing who your local officials are. I mean, even like you've got counselor. Again, you've got the police chief. You got a chief financial officer. Most cities have a chief financial officer. You should know who that is. That's the person that's going to be determining, helping to determine, your local taxes, your sales taxes, and things like that.
The comptroller is going to determine where money gets put.
There you go. Yep, there you go. And it's it seems like a lot. It's really not. You'll get a lot further in your life, like personally, like seeing change in your life, knowing who your local officials are and how to vote appropriately and what they stand for. Because again, your district attorney, for example, they literally, if you don't like a certain law, if you don't like sentences that are being handed out, like, sure, Trump passes his police
You don't like
reform
that
bill.
district or circuit judge that gave you that long sentence? Then vote his ass out.
There you go. Exactly. Because, they're actually the ones that are going to determine. And I mean, you can look at states like you can look at New York and things like that. That, they have slightly more, I don't want to really say, for whatever reason, the word lenient keeps coming to mind, but not lenient. But they have a higher approval rating amongst the citizens for how sentencing has been handed down. It wasn't always like that.
You seen that judge from Rhode Island? He's got his own show. That's the judge I want in Maryland. I forget his name. But he has his own show now.
Well, I don't know. I know Judge Judy's worth $400 million, so she did something right. I'm not sure if she. I mean, it pays to be a judge if you're on TV and dealing with idiots.
The Rhode Island judge.
Yeah, is he the black guy? Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He's been on YouTube.
Like, come up here. How much do you owe?
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's the judge.
Like, you got a pot to piss in? Yeah. Just go ahead. Just go ahead. Don't do stuff no more. All right.
And you went through the intersection at 3.1 seconds, and it snaps the photo at 2.5. You're good. Go ahead.
You're good. Yeah, I like Judge Judy. I'm not gonna lie, I like Judge Judy.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We have to start really looking at the local level. I mean, everybody, and the cool thing is, if you look at the local level, what you'll find is a lot more average people. Your moderates are all at the local level. If you're in most normal towns, outside of some extremists in California, New York, most of your normal Joes, because once you start talking to them, they can't talk to you like they're Fox News on the right or CNN or MSNBC on the left. They can't talk to you like that because they need your vote. So they better be interested in what you're talking about. I mean, I talked to a mayor that was running for office here, and I don't live in the city, so I can't vote. But the dude was super cool. I mean, we had a great discussion. He was very conservative in a lot of his principles. He had some liberal positions as well. I mean, these are people that have lived here for 10 years. They're in the community. These people do care, and it stinks because on the federal level, too often, especially when we're dealing with people that don't even live in their, towns and cities. I remember when what was the guy who was always like this? I'm gonna get rigged for that one, but John McCain. So John McCain, that guy went to Arizona like once in 40 years. That's so wrong.
I thought you were talking about Chris Christie for a second.
No, Chris Christie.
Yeah.
I guess that's just slightly better than the dude. What's the guy that's with what's the guy's name? With always with the old crypt keeper looking lady that couldn't get up off her knee.
Maxine Waters.
What'd you say?
Did you say Maxine Waters?
Yeah, who's the guy that's always No. Pelosi. Who's the guy that's always with Pelosi? Chuck Schumer.
Schumer.
He looks just like the farmer in that
Pet Cemetery.
He's terrible. Yeah. That guy, both of them, man, they're a hard fart away from turning to dust. I mean, those two are, gosh damn. Like, the Democrats are so funny. They got 4 20-year-olds and 4 196-year-olds. That's their party. They're missing some middle meat there.
It's the truth, though, right? They got.
Jumping aside, how can you be in politics for 40 years? That's the kind of stuff that I hope and again, if you start with your local level, you find people that have been in politics 2-3 years, they tend to really care about their constituents. They tend to be pretty passionate about what they're doing.
Yet. They haven't been
Yeah, they haven't been bought. I mean, the idea that you can be in Congress for 20 years and have $300 million in the bank and nobody's like, hold on a second.
Your salary $200K and you're worth 30 still?
You're swimming with Scrooge McDuck, and you're a civil servant. What? I know servants that would love to make that. I mean, that's right. At some point you do lose being a civil servant,
and that's a lot of the reason why too. If you notice, we see a lot more voter suppression, believe it or not, on the local levels, as opposed to like the big. I mean, you see it on both. But there's been voter suppression, in the mayoral race. There's been voter suppression, even in the race for city manager and councilor. There's been voter suppression. You usually don't see it once you get down to like the city council and things like that.
So how do you even voter suppress?
I mean, just like what we've recently just saw over the past, what I would say 10 days, couple weeks. Voters literally standing there waiting in line for hours, not able to vote, and then the person comes out and says, hey, we weren't able to fix our machines or whatever, you got to come back, and just giving people the runaround. This literally happened within the past 2 weeks in a lot of states, yours especially. Georgia was real fucked up for some voter suppression. So
well the thing is suppression says that, I mean, the whole idea behind voter suppression would be a concentrated effort. So you're saying that there is some proof?
Absolutely. In this day and age, I don't believe for a second that on your one voting day, your machines are down and you have people waiting for hours and hours in certain districts. And if you notice, and you might not want to admit this, but it's typically the Republicans that are trying to suppress votes.
I disagree. I mean, why would no?
There's been numerous accounts, numerous. There's a numerous amount of data that's come out. It's always typically Republicans.
I've never seen any. If you have any, you can throw it up on the screen. But I've never seen any. What I've seen is
Republicans are the ones that do the most voter suppression. Just so I make sure we're clear.
Hold on. I guess it's different. If you want to say that Republicans are more likely to voter suppress and Democrats are more likely to illegally vote and to try to encourage illegal voting by people who have no business voting, people that are dead, people that are cats, cats. Somebody got about 4 different ones the other day. I mean, those things are the things that, I would have to see. I mean, first of all, to me, voter suppression doesn't make much sense to me from a Republican standpoint, because Republicans tend to own the suburbs. So in the cities, why would they suppress votes? They're going to lose anyways. It just doesn't make sense. If they're doing
suppressing, and if you notice, they're typically suppressing votes in those areas that are like middle class, not necessarily the inner cities, but like middle class, but majority black areas. That's where they're suppressing votes.
Well, that's what I've always heard. I've just never seen any data to support that. And I've always seen excuses. Oh, and it always really comes off racist to me. It's like, black people can't, what are they supposed to have licenses? And you're like, licenses? Like, a black person can go get a license? What are you talking about?
The biggest complaint I've heard on voter suppression right now is that you have to require people to have an ID.
An ID, I know, and that's ridiculous. Sorry, black people have IDs.
Is requiring an ID the pitfall, or is allowing anybody to vote with the mail-in vote the pitfall?
And I don't think me or Kenny necessarily has the answer to that one, but I do believe when you have people waiting in line on election day to vote and they're unable to vote because of whatever wonky reasons, you could say whatever. In my opinion, I think that's a very concentrated effort to suppress votes for sure. Like, you mean to tell me that in 2020, we don't have the technology to allow people to vote on election day? It's a planned day. You've got hundreds of people standing in line that are unable to vote. You're sending them home. So I think that in and of itself is a cord. I mean, that's really the majority of most voter suppression that we've been seeing today. I mean,
I'm just being honest with you. This is the first time I've ever heard that be the excuse. And I've watched a lot of. I've never heard that be the excuse. To me, it's always been distance from a DMV. It's always been ID. It's been about why shouldn't illegal have the right to vote? I mean, those are the points that are being brought up. First of all, if a system goes down in an area that's predominantly black, then Republican wins. Like they just went to the one area that it had blacks. Like that would happen for a national election.
That's what I'm saying. Like look at all the voter suppression. Look at all the voter suppression that happened in Florida, mainly in black areas. And then shoot, the Ron DeSantis election even on down. I mean,
go ahead. When did how did the Ron DeSantis
Broward County, like Broward County didn't get to vote, or they did.
I lived in Broward County. I mean, Broward County's had a problem with voting stuff for about 20 years. Broward County is a more Republican county, though.
That's my whole point.
Which means they would win that anyway. So why would they do it? That doesn't make sense. They're doing it
in the black areas. And Broward County has gotten
but the black areas would be Democrat ran. That doesn't make sense.
Predominantly black. Yes.
It would have to happen where black people are stopped from vote. The only way that would happen if in a black area is the Democrats are running that area. So that doesn't make any sense to me. In a black district that is ran by the DNC would be a large part of who's doing the information gathering there, and they're having problems. Like that doesn't make any. How would that be? How in a Democrat city with the DNC playing the part in a predominantly area that's Democrat? How would they, if they have problems there? How would that be a Republican issue?
It's not a Republican issue. That's what the Republicans want. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's what the Republicans want.
They want Democrats to mess up their areas so they can suppress their votes.
Exactly. They want that middle of the road.
Why would the Democrats suppress their own voting block?
The Democrats aren't doing it. The Republicans are doing it.
In the Republican areas aren't predominantly black. So how would they know to shut down this? Like it just doesn't. It doesn't pass the smell test. Now, if you want to send me more stuff, we can do a whole other episode on that.
I'm trying to tell you
because it doesn't make sense if you're if you're a Democrat and you're getting your vote suppressed, they should suppress the Democrats in the Republican area since you have control of that area, and so then you would win a higher percentage. But if you wouldn't do it in the black community, you wouldn't have access. How would you have access? It's all Democrats.
Wait, say that one more time. Or you both were talking.
I said that you would have to if you were going to suppress if I was in charge of the Republican Party and the Republican Party was totally racist for everything CNN says we are, and we go, I want to suppress the black vote. Well, then I go to my Republican areas, and then I would have those areas instead of being 70% Republican, we would make it so it was like 90% Republican. I wouldn't be able to go into Miami-Dade and try to get Miami-Dade's liberal area to all of a sudden, hey, we're just not going to let you guys vote. It's all black people there. It's like if you go to Valdosta, in the city, it's all black people there. The Democrats are the ones running it. So how are the Republicans?
That's what I've been trying to tell you. The Republicans in Republican areas are trying to suppress the black votes. You just said in
predominantly black areas. What I'm saying is they wouldn't be
predominant. There are plenty of predominantly black areas that are in Republican cities, Republican counties. There are predominantly black areas, not a lot, but they are there. And trust me, just look at the last vote. I think it was literally 10 days ago. For city council in Georgia.
Well, we'll do a full voter suppression thing. That way it'll give you time to be able to pull up any data you have, because clearly I think voting suppression is one of the biggest lies and myths in this country.
No, I think forms of voter suppression is the biggest lie, or some of the biggest lies and things like that.
I missed the first part. You said Forbes? What'd you say? Say it again.
I think certain forms that they're saying that they're trying to consider voter suppression, like for example the ID thing. I don't consider that voter suppression. Like I don't think that that's voter suppression. So I don't. There's a lot of excuses that are being used. But what I'm talking about is voter suppression for sure. What I'm talking about is voter suppression, and it's happening. It literally just happened 10 days ago.
The ID thing should be done. It should be a done deal.
Yeah, like the whole ID thing.
You have a mag strip on the back of your ID card, on the back of your driver's license. There's a mag strip. That mag strip could be encoded with something on there that says, This is Fred. His voter ID is number 00121141. And when I plug my ID into the voter machine, it registers my vote. I can't vote again. Done.
And if the issue is, let's say, like, first of all, people shouldn't be ever sent away if you're waiting for hours. I mean, that's a pretty simple solution. You could walk up to them with mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots are specifically for if you're out of town or if you cannot get to the ballot. At that point, you would not be able to get to the ballot. At that point, you should be able to write in your vote. So we should be able to have these should be easy, and we'll look at what they are, because to me, if it's voter suppression, that's
the
saying that
whole
we
point.
can come up with an issue.
Easy fix. They're easy fixes. Look, and this stuff is
not
rocket science.
If it's an easy fix and there is voter suppression the way you were saying it, I'm just wondering why I've never seen it on the news that way. It's always been about IDs and trying to get people, like they did in Georgia, trying to say, well, everyone's, you're a citizen of Georgia just because you're not a citizen of the United States. And they were, her big push was trying to get illegals to vote.
Look up. I think it was literally like 10 days ago where you guys had voting going on in Savannah. Just look up your local. Look it up. It'll tell you.
Look it up, and we'll debate it.
You know what?
was suppressed.
You know what's funny about 2020 though is that we can't find a huge Boeing 747 that goes down in Malaysia, but we can find my damn iPhone on the corner of fucking Aberdeen and Fallsway from freaking Georgia.
I think it's even more amazing that we can track everyone's phone to know what was going on with COVID, but somehow molesters are out there just walking the streets.
Hello.
I don't know.
But right.
So let's move on.
I think it would be great.
Listen, later on in the week, we're gonna have a good show with this voter suppression shit. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Oh yeah.
So what's up with this Wizards thing, man? What's going on with the Wizards jersey and James Harden?
Okay, well, James Harden, I thought the one thing, he came out and I think we discussed on the show a little bit, but he's pretty apolitical. So he came out, but he got roasted, man. He really did. I mean, he got crushed for his, it wasn't even his belief for what people thought it was. And so what I just thought was, why don't we go through, I'll tell you, what issues, this has all of the different names on it. That is not the. Dang it. That's not good. It had the. Here it is. All right. So it has what they said underneath it. So I was going to read one. There's a couple of them that kind of rub me the wrong way, and it's just frustrating because, of course, on the punchlines, right? Like, first of all the options that they give you. Okay. Let me see if it says here the options. Here it is. Here are some of the agreed to terms that they let you say. Black Lives Matter. So again, if you're someone that believes all Black Lives Matter, if that's your punchline, which I've heard before, that's no good. It says say their names, vote, I can't breathe, justice, peace, equality, freedom, enough, power to the people, justice now, say her name, liberation, see us, hear us, how many more, group economics, which can you imagine somebody running around with a group economics jersey? I'm going to go ahead and say that nobody's got that group econ jersey on. We just, like, who the hell put that out there? Okay. Education reform.
Is that the only one left? Can I get that one?
There is one that's I'm a man, but I guess you can only probably get that if you're in the WNBA. I'm in trouble. I mean, because let's be honest. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm not joking because I think we'd all agree. If you put one that says I am a man on the back of your jersey, I feel like there would have been some pushback for that. Like, we are in a very anti-male society, right? I think so.
Yeah, man.
So let's talk about this. And anything on that so far, Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, so
a lot of those are good. So let me go ahead and say that. A lot of those are good. I'm not against the words. Let's be clear.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm glad that you actually cleared that up. But a lot of them, I think you can look at anything. You can literally look at anything and create some sort of a double standard for it. I mean, I like the jerseys. I don't think there's I like them. I like the jerseys.
Here's the problem. To me, you can't, when you start doing this, it kind of segues to what the show was on Monday, on Friday, which is you're going to say, you picked certain ones. And why did they pick these certain ones? They picked these certain ones.
This is the thing. They picked these certain ones because, in their opinion, they're the ones that resonate with their business. So at the end of the day, everybody's not gonna be happy with these jerseys.
Can the
NHL
NHL do the same thing?
Can the NHL do the same thing? I don't see why not. Well, why did you bring up the NHL? Because it's predominantly white?
Yes.
That's exactly why.
That's exactly why I brought it up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
If they come up with a group of beliefs that the organization and the people think, right? Like
this is not the NBA. This is just the Wizards. So I guess if maybe like the New Jersey Devils decided to.
Oh, sorry. It was the Wizards, but it was okayed by the NBA and the NBA.
It was okayed by the NBA, but it's not like the whole NBA. It's like on their BLM shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was the Wizards specifically. So if a specific team in the NHL wanted to do it, this is the thing. Like I said, there are people that are going to look at these Wizards jerseys and they're not going to like them. So let's say there was an NHL team that wanted to come out with an All Lives Matter, whatever. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about the history of that. And where that really stems from and what the actual intent of All Lives Matter really is. But without going down that rabbit hole, there's obviously going to be some people that don't like that either.
But that would be the same intent that Black Lives Matter actually is.
What was that?
That would be the same. The original intent of All Lives Matter is the same thing that Black Lives Matter is.
No, it's not.
The idea of All Lives Mattering that most people talk about when they say All Lives Matter is the same thing that the Black Lives Matter movement is about. None of it's the excused racism in it is on the organizational sides of it, not on the movement sides of it.
Yeah, it's part of the same reason why you have Blue Lives Matter and whatever else lives matter, which I don't see why there are all these lives matter as if by someone saying Black Lives Matter, it automatically means that their lives don't. So that's or that blue lives don't, or whatever.
I don't
else.
think.
So,
I don't.
it is what it is. Like
bigger problem though, Glenn. I don't think it has to do with anybody believing that. Hey, right now everybody's on board. Everybody wants that.
Yeah. For sure. But there's a very specific reason why All Lives Matter was started back in the end of 2014, 2015. And it's not the same. It's not the same core initiative that Black Lives Matter was started on.
Right.
What was their core belief?
Well, all lives matter.
Yeah,
it was started specifically to like in opposition of Black Lives Matter.
Correct.
And it was almost like
the narrative.
It was almost like a fear-mongering thing. It was almost like a fear-mongering thing, trying to say that.
That's what I was going to get at. That's what I was trying to say.
Why would you want to even counter the narrative? Like, that's the thing. Like, think about what you're saying.
Well, because the same reason you're trying to speak out to how frustrating it is for the All Lives Matter, though, because, again, the organization was built on the premise of hands up, don't shoot. It didn't happen. It was built on the premise of George Zimmerman being a white man that murdered a black man when George Zimmerman was Peruvian. I mean, there was just so many things that they tried to create out of the narrative. And so people who saw the narrative as, hey, that's just lying. That's not accurate. And so those people, that's where the All Lives Matter came from. So yes, it was counter, but it was counter to the BLM, the organization, not towards Black lives actually mattering. A lot of people who say all lives matter, because I know people who have said it, every single one to a T cares about Black people and thinks their lives matter. It's the disagreement within the organization. And it's fine to disagree on that for today. I want to make sure we get back to this. So let's just go over a couple of these that, to me, one of the ones, so Freedom, Isaac Bonga, okay? He put out, now Isaac Bonga, here was his statement. He said, I choose freedom on the back of my jersey because I think it's time for us to be free. We should at least have the past. We should leave the past in the past and learn from our mistakes, because I think if you do that, you're going to grow as a collective, but as human beings. I think if you do that, we should start teaching the next generation about being free and how to love each other. I think that's why I chose freedom. Now, I'm not totally against this, but it bothers me a little bit just because he's from Germany. He's only been here a year. And so it's not that I don't think that, he has any right to say anything, say whatever he wants. You've just been here. You've lived, a life where you're an NBA player now, and the word that you chose to say leaving the past in his past, coming from Germany, it just rubs me the wrong way, because I feel like it is hard for me to see anybody, I don't care what color you are, when I feel like you've had a pretty privileged life, to complain about having freedom. Because I believe there are people who don't have freedom, like kids who are in the hood right now in South Valdosta. Those people have way less freedom than Isaac Bonga has. And maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe he wants the same freedom that he had, but he just didn't say that. And I just wish people who have this great platform, that they would be more like, hey, man, I had these great blessings, and I'm going to turn around and I'm going to help them. Not we should do this, and hopefully you're going to go, and hopefully you're going to go teach this. And it's like, who? Like, you're here. You have money. You're in a position of power. Like, can you help this? So that one just, and it happened to be the first one, but that was one of the ones that just kind of like, come on, man.
That was a little side rant, man. Side rant. You hating on my man's freedom? How you gonna hate on my man's freedom?
The exact opposite. I'm asking him to respect how wonderful his freedom is, that he can move between countries. I can't. You can't.
And this is the thing, because at the end of the day, like, none of us know, how he grew up. I can't even pronounce his name at the time.
And that's the other thing too.
Like, we don't know,
So there's a bunch of worse places than you've ever seen in America. And people in America have no clue about, but think they have it worse off than anybody else in the world.
And I mean, you don't know.
Right. I'm just saying, 4 years ago, he was 16. This kid, well, I mean, you can look up somebody's history, which I did on him. And as a 15-year-old, he came over here and was in the ESPN top 100. Let's just not act like those kids aren't treated differently. Like, they are. Like, and I'm glad for him. I'm glad this kid is blessed. Like, I'm a Wizards fan. I mean, on the basketball court, I like Isaac Bonga. I don't think what he said was horrible. I just wish people that are in a more privileged position, instead of going, hey, everybody else, make sure this racism stops. You've been in our country for 5 minutes, and you came over here in these two, because your parents can afford to fly you back and forth. You're living a pretty good life. Why don't you say, hey, look, this is awesome freedom that I have, and I want to make sure that every kid has this. So how can we get to where every kid has this? I just feel like having a young person say that,
I think you're assuming. I mean, you can't look at somebody's success now, or even somebody's success as they're beginning to get that success. Like, when you're going to basketball camps and thing, and you're 15, 16 years old, a lot of that stuff is paid for. You've got sponsors and things like that.
Yeah, well,
he can come from the dirt. He could come from the dirt. You just don't know.
One more reason: if he came from the dirt and now he's in the NBA, what a story to tell. What a story to tell. I mean, you read, and I just feel like it's different, I guess. I look back at these older guys, right, that have been there, told the story, and he's young, right? So let's be clear. Yeah. He's super young. So I'm not trying to, I don't want to come off as beating
another reason why he shouldn't have been asked this question.
Correct. I agree. But it's tough, because I do believe.
Card. I got freaking cum stains older than him. All right.
He probably don't got his ID.
Yeah.
That might be true.
He's just now allowed to smoke.
He don't got no ID.
He's just
and
now
again,
allowed to club.
I don't want to beat him up too bad. I love when I see people. So I'm gonna give a shout out to Kenny Moore from the Colts. Okay, Kenny Moore from the Colts. So I've met him a couple times. Okay, he's from Valdosta State, baby. VSU. Just for people that don't know, Fred's a huge Colts fan. So Kenny Moore runs a camp, a free camp for kids. And he's just always all about the kids. Now, I don't know what this guy does in his personal life. So maybe Bonga does do that. But I see what Kenny Smith does, and I see him rising these kids' lives, and I just wish that Kenny Moore can do way more for the Black community than I can. He can. He's there. you know? And so
Yeah.
as much as I want to help, there's certain people that can help more than me. And for them to be like, well, when are you guys going to do this? And it's like, when are you? It's kind of like the joke when Michelle Obama was complaining about school lunches and Bill Burr said, you're telling me, you're holding up a sign said, bring our girls, or it wasn't school lunches, sorry, it was bringing girls home that were kidnapped. And he's like, I got Michelle Obama holding the sign. He's like, look across the dinner table. There's your husband. He's the leader of the free world. That guy's got all the power. What the hell am I going to do? I'm a comedian. And that's kind of how I feel about this. I just want to see, you know, the people that are in power and stuff. And I want to give it, I know we're running short on time, so I do want to bring this one up real quick, which I did like. And it was oh shoot, passed it. So this one was Shabazz Napier says equality in this world at the moment right now, we're fighting against each other. Let me go ahead and put this on the screen. Whether it's black or white or women or men, I think for us to understand everybody should be held to an equal standard. No matter what race, no matter what gender, I think that speaks loudly to me. I was raised by only my mother, so I understand the trials and tribulations that women go through on a daily basis. Obviously, I'm not a female. I think it's very important, as much as black and white, same for LGBTQ and equal rights. I think that means a lot. I think you can handle that down. Sooner or later, things will come to fruition and we live in a positive world. I just like that a little bit better. I just feel like it was a little bit more positive. And maybe I'm reading it wrong. Maybe I'm being hard on my boy Bonga. And it was specifically because, you know, I'm not gonna lie, that he came from another country.
You the wrong way that he ain't even from here for real. That's what he's like.
Well, it did. Well, just because I've been to other places, and you know, I have actually good friends that live in Germany as well, and it's a pretty, you know, and again, it's like anywhere. I don't know whether you came from the dust, okay? But to be able to come to America, I do think is a blessing. And maybe this is rooted in the fact that I know a lot of people that actually were illegals that came here, watched people die to come here. I mean, I have some friends who used to work with me back in the day that used to tell me stories that were horrific of these people. And these were Hispanic guys, most of them Mexican, El Salvadorian, Guatemala, and they love this country. I mean, they are very, 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 very pro USA because they realize how great this nation is. It gave them this opportunity. Even though our country was not bringing them in, right? These people were fighting to get here, and they just saw this opportunity. And so it's tough for me. And to be honest with you, you know, Glenn probably called me out and is correct. But a big part of it was that you came here as a young basketball prodigy. And instead of being like, wow, man, y'all got a lot of wonderful things here. I think you guys can, you know, a little bit in this area and we can be great. It just came off more like, well, you know, we really need y'all to do this and this. It's like, well, you just got here. Like, you gotta be here for a while before you can start complaining about it.
Did you even pass the citizenship test yet?
Like, you're about to get checks with, you know, from us watching you and being in the U.S. and just give us a little respect. That's all. I did feel that way.
And I feel maybe he could have in the beginning, because I agree with what he said. But sure, I do think, Kenny, you might have a point with you know, he could have definitely said a few good things about the country. But at the end of the day, you never know. We can't just assume. You know, we don't know. He could have grown up going back and forth between Germany and America.
I can guarantee you, Germany lives here. The money he's making in the U.S.
Probably
For sure.
not, but yeah, I'm sure he probably still had. I'm sure he probably has family that lives here in America.
He could have probably made a living.
Probably lives in some ghetto, some slum, and he's seeing how that is.
Why are you assuming he's got family in ghetto and slums?
I'm just saying, you don't know.
Shit.
I didn't assume that. Shut up. I didn't assume that.
God damn.
He's probably got two white parents.
My luck. No, my luck. I get some idiot on here.
I know.
Oh, you're gonna get blown up later.
No, but you know, I mean, I'm sure.
Everybody has struggles. I don't care where you're at.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's probably got family members that are living in subpar conditions. You never know, right? But
not anymore.
I don't think someone's just gonna comment. I don't think someone's just gonna comment like that if they don't see that those sort of things in their personal lives are happening to someone that they personally care about. So
you would hope not.
Yeah. Hopefully, and hopefully that is the case. Hopefully, you know, he knows somebody that's locked down that way. I just think he seems to have had an elite, a higher level of freedom than most people, right? As a 16-year-old, I don't give a damn who gave me what. There's no way I was gonna be able to go to, I wasn't gonna go to Germany and then back to here and then back to Germany and then back to here. I just wasn't born that way. But you know, I get that point of view. I'll take the initial 2-minute close here. So, first of all, I want to thank everybody for watching the show tonight. We appreciate it. Hopefully, we know it's a little bit different tonight, trying to learn some things, trying to educate on these specific topics. It can be tough sometimes. So appreciate everybody for coming out and paying attention. And, you know, what we really want to do is promote positivity. We don't want to rag on anybody except for jokes. You know, we are going to make jokes, but I do love my country. I'm grateful for my country. I've been to other places. I've seen the inequality here, but I've also seen the freedom that comes from here. And I hope that we can all come together as one. And that's all I got for you tonight on Wednesday. Y'all have a wonderful week. Or Monday.
I was going to say Wednesday. I already think about that. I was like, is it Wednesday? For real? I was like, this week has been flying by. This week has been flying by. All right, cool, man. So appreciate it, Kenny. Yeah, as always, good start to the week. Again, happy Monday. Thank you all for joining in with us tonight. I just want to go ahead and talk about, because the main premise of the show for the most part was about executive orders and the president's power, I guess, if you will, or ability to sign off and execute them. So executive orders, I think, are necessary. I mean, I think there's a lot of folks that are against them. But again, and the reason why I started my main, I guess, thesis, if you will, off with saying that there's a checks and balances system is because that does make me feel a lot better about executive orders. And I think that America as a whole does a good job of checking and balancing each branch of government. So, again, this is the best country ever. I love being an American. We talk about it and, there's issues and things like that. There's things that I think probably every country needs to work on. And I don't know to the extent of, there's probably people watching like right now, like, there's other countries that don't have slavery or that don't have this, right? So it's not a pissing contest for sure, but, that's a valid point. But, there's no other place that I would want to rather be from. I love being an American. I love my country. I love all the states that I've resided in here. And, I plan on visiting all 50 states in my lifetime. Haven't done that yet. But again, thank you all for being here. Happy Monday. We will be back on Wednesday, and enjoy the beginning of your week, guys.
All right. Thanks, Glenn. Kenny. Just like my colleague said, just to wrap up, man, we had the executive orders talk tonight. So basically, there's been a lot of this going on way before Obama, way before Trump. So before we all get all up in a tizzy, let it be known this was going on way before both of them. So before we go crazy and off the rails, let's do our research, all right? Pay attention to the history so you know how the future unfolds, all right? Moving forward, local voting. If you want something changed, don't think that voting for the president or the vice president is going to change your local area. If you want something changed in your community, you got to get out and vote for your circuit judge, your district judge, your sheriff, your district attorney, all those guys. Get out there and vote for them, all right? Because if you're out here BSing, complaining, and not voting, then you're part of the problem, not part of the solution. All right, let's make this country great again. Don't think because Trump said it, it's a bad thing. All right, it's not a bad thing. America's always been the best country. I know we've had our shiners. Of course, we got black eyes. No country's without them. All right, we all have blemishes, but that's how we got here. All right, we don't get to where we're at without the bruises. You don't become the professional you are today without going through the blemishes of your past. Same thing with the country. All right. So in order for us to get moving forward, we all got to come back together and love one another again. And I hope we just get there one day. And I think we can. So I know I'm off my soapbox. Sorry about that. But hey, wash your hands. Welcome back, my boys. All right. And let's end it on a good note, right? America, we love y'all. Peace.